Tajikistan isn't just a remote mountain country. It's a land shaped by empires, revolutions, and ancient trade routes that once connected east and west. So if you've ever wondered how this overlooked nation became a crossroads of history, stick around. We're diving into its dramatic past, breathtaking landscapes, and the culture that still thrives in the heart of Central Asia. Long before it was a nation, the region now known as Tajikistan was home to ancient civilizations dating back over 4,000 years. Archaeological finds prove continuous human presence, but the details of these early cultures are still a mystery. The first written records appear around 500 BC, when the area was part of the First Persian Empire. Then, in the 9th and 10th centuries, Tajik lands entered a golden era under the Persian Samanid Empire. Under Ismail Somoni's rule, the region flourished as a centre for science, literature, and culture. He's remembered today as a national hero where his name is seen in the country's currency, its tallest mountain, and a grand statue in Dushanbe. But empires never last forever. The Samanids fell in 999 to the Turkic Kara Khanid Khanate, marking the beginning of centuries of Turkic dominance across Central Asia. Eventually, Tajik territory became part of the Emirate of Bukhara. Then, in the 1860s and 1870s, the Russian Empire expanded south, bringing Tajik lands under imperial rule. But after the Russian Revolution in 1917, the grip of Moscow weakened. Indigenous resistance fighters known as the Basmachi launched a fierce guerrilla campaign against Bolshevik forces, and it took the Soviets until 1925 to fully regain control. In 1924, the Soviets officially created the Tajik Autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic, placing it under the Uzbek SSR. But 5 years later, in 1929, Moscow carved Tajikistan out as its own republic and transferred much of present-day Sogd province into it. Even today, the Soviet-era borders have lasting consequences. One example is the large population of ethnic Uzbeks living in Tajikistan, and in turn, a significant number of ethnic Tajiks residing in Uzbekistan. From then until 1991, Tajikistan remained part of the Soviet Union. Then the collapse came, and just like that, Tajikistan became independent. But independence didn't mean peace. A year later, in 1992, the country plunged into civil war. Political, regional, and religious factions, especially in the eastern Pamirs, rose up against the newly formed government. The conflict lasted until 1997, claiming tens of thousands of lives. Russian troops backed government forces, and eventually, a peace agreement was signed. President Emomali Rahmon, who came to power during the war, has remained in control ever since. He was first elected in 1994, but elections since then have been marred by irregularities. In 2015, he used a planned attack by a former defense official to justify banning Tajikistan's last major opposition party. Shortly after, he had himself declared founder of peace and national unity, leader of the nation, a title that gave him lifelong immunity and unlimited presidential terms. In 2020, Rahmon lowered the minimum age to run for president from 35 to 30, making his son, Rustam Emomali, mayor of Dushanbe, eligible. That same year, Rustam was appointed chairman of the upper house of parliament, setting him up as the likely successor. Yet Rahmon ran again and won with 91% of the vote. Even today, Tajikistan faces enormous challenges. It remains the poorest country in the former Soviet bloc, with an economy heavily dependent on remittances from workers in Russia and Kazakhstan. Corruption is widespread, and the drug trade from neighbouring Afghanistan adds to regional instability. Security is also fragile. Since 2010, the government has faced violent flare-ups in the Rasht Valley and Gorno-Badakhshan Autonomous Region. In 2018, the country suffered its first ISIS-claimed terror attack, when militants killed 4 Western cyclists. Meanwhile, border tensions with Kyrgyzstan have led to deadly clashes in both 2021 and 2022. Still, Tajikistan endures, and while political tensions may simmer, the country has remained relatively stable in recent years. So what happens when a country's economy grows, but its people still struggle to make ends meet? In Tajikistan, political power and economic progress exist side by side, but don't always walk hand in hand. Because on paper, things look promising. Just look at this. Between 1992 and 2024, Tajikistan's GDP rose by more than $13 billion, reaching an estimated $13.54 billion in 2024, and it's expected to keep climbing by another 8.66 billion by 2030. While the growth hasn't always been steady, the long-term trend points upward. Over the last decade, Tajikistan has averaged over 7% economic growth per year. In 2024, the economy grew by 8.4%, driven mostly by money sent home from Tajik migrant workers abroad. These remittances, mostly from Russia and Kazakhstan, make up nearly half of the country's GDP. They fund everyday spending and keep imports flowing. As a result, this growth has made a dent in poverty. In 2009, about 32% of Tajiks lived below the international poverty line. Today, that number has dropped to just 9.1%. But by national standards, poverty still affects around 1 in 5 people, especially in rural and mountainous regions. Despite these gains, the economy is still fragile, meaning any economic shock, like rising tensions in Russia, a drop in remittances, or a natural disaster, could hit hard. So what's the way forward? Tajikistan has untapped potential. A young population, vast natural resources, powerful rivers for hydropower, and tourism opportunities in its stunning mountain ranges. The government wants to double or triple domestic income by 2030. But reaching that goal will require a serious shift. Less reliance on remittances and more focus on building a strong, private sector-driven economy. And that brings us to digital transformation, one of the country's biggest challenges and most promising frontiers. As of 2023, only about 41% of households had internet access at home. And while mobile phone use is high, internet speeds are painfully slow, ranking 139th globally. Most rural areas are left out of the digital economy altogether. Broadband is expensive, government infrastructure is outdated, and tech skills are limited. But change is coming. The government has rolled out several strategies to modernise, like the concept of the digital economy, the artificial intelligence strategy until 2040, and the National E-commerce Programme for 2025 to 2029. It also launched the Agency for Innovation and Digital Technologies under the President in 2024. President Rahmon even declared 2025 to 2030 the official decade of digital development. By upgrading internet access, training digital talent, and supporting startups, Tajikistan could boost productivity, improve government services, and create jobs, especially for its young and growing population. But for that to happen, it'll take more than policy papers. The digital future of Tajikistan depends on real investment, better regulations, and genuine political will. But Tajikistan's story isn't just written in their shifting economy. It's also carved into its mountains, valleys, and wild landscapes that continue to shape the way people live today. Stretching from the western edges of the Himalayas to the heart of Central Asia, Tajikistan is one of the most mountainous countries in the world. More than 9/10 of its territory is rugged terrain, and nearly half sits above 10,000 feet, or 3,000 meters. The Pamir Mountains is home to some of the tallest peaks in all of Central Asia. One of them is called the Imeni Ismail Samani Peak, and it rises to a breathtaking 24,590 feet, or 7,495 meters. Believe it or not, that's higher than any mountain in the Alps or Rockies. And just nearby is Ibn Sina Peak, another giant towering over 23,000 feet, or 7,134 meters. And guess what? These peaks are still rising today, thanks to active tectonic forces that also make the region one of the most earthquake-prone in the world. Now, while the mountains are impressive, the valleys below play a crucial role in daily life. The Fergana Valley in the north, and the Giza and Vaksh valleys in the south are key population centres and agricultural zones, but combined, they make up less than 10% of the total land area. And if you think that's wild, wait until you check out the stunning alpine lakes. In the northwest, you'll find Iskanderkul, Alovidin, and Kulikalon. They're glistening turquoise gems surrounded by jagged peaks. Then, head east into the Pamirs, and the scenery becomes even more surreal. Sares Lake, Zorkul, Yashikul, and the crater like Karakul sit in dramatic isolation. Fun fact, some of these lakes were created by ancient landslides, others are glacier-fed. And it's not just the natural lakes that are worthy of attention, because there are also massive reservoirs like Nurek and Kairakum that were built for hydroelectricity. This, in turn, helps provide much of the country's energy. And with the varied terrain comes a harsh but fascinating climate. Down in the valleys, summers are blazing hot, with temperatures in Dushanbe often soaring to 104 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius. Then winters bring snow, even in lower areas. But in mountain towns like Murgob, it's a different story. Here, temperatures in January can plummet to negative 51 degrees Fahrenheit, or about minus 46 degrees Celsius, and precipitation is minimal, often just 2 to 3 inches, which is about 50 to 75 millimeters a year, mostly as snow. Despite such harsh weather conditions, Tajikistan's nature is full of life. And surprisingly, the biodiversity here is incredibly rich, with golden eagles, snow leopards, brown bears, and Marco Polo sheep, which were named after the famed explorer, roaming the high mountains. Lower down, deserts give way to deer, wildcats, jackals, and even tigers in more forested zones. Besides its epic collection of fauna, the country also features an impressive flora selection, because it's home to over 5,000 species of flowering plants. But sadly, much of this natural beauty remains hidden from the world for one main reason. The tourism infrastructure is extremely limited, making the breathtaking landscape tough to access for outsiders. But for those who make the journey, the payoff is huge. And here's why. The Fan Mountains and the Pamirs offer world-class trekking, crystal-clear lakes, and one of the rawest alpine experiences you can find anywhere. And if you ever find yourself heading to this underrated corner of Central Asia, there's one thing you need to experience firsthand: the culture. Tajikistan's identity is a vibrant blend of ancient traditions, Persian roots, Soviet legacy, and homegrown customs. It stretches back over 2,000 years and draws inspiration from Zoroastrianism, Islam, and a profound connection to the mountains and land. So what makes it so special? Let's start with something close to the heart: literature and poetry. For centuries, Tajik literature moved in step with Persian tradition. Up until the 16th century, they were practically the same thing. Even today, legendary poets like Radaki, Ferdowsi, Jami, and Ahmad Donish are national treasures. Their work covers everything from folklore and philosophy to satire and spirituality. Fast forward to the 20th century. Soviet rule may have reshaped the region politically, but it also led to the preservation and documentation of many local stories. Today, a new wave of Tajik writers is emerging, sharing their voices through digital platforms and in their own national language. Besides literature, music too tells a powerful story. Tajik melodies are infused with Persian, Arab, and regional influences. One standout genre is shashmakom, a mesmerizing style of music that blends rhythm and melody in a way that feels both ancient and timeless. It's been passed down through generations and is still performed at festivals and gatherings today. And where there's music, there's usually dance. In Tajikistan, dance is more than performance. It's storytelling in motion. Each region has its own signature style. Some dances are inspired by nature, like the Dance of the Eagle, where performers mimic soaring birds. Others, like Dance with a Carpet, draw from daily village life. Whether it's at a wedding or a community celebration, Tajik dance is a joyful expression of identity and tradition. Now let's talk style, because traditional clothing here isn't just for show. In rural areas, many people still wear traditional outfits every day. They're known for their bold colours, flowing cuts, and eye-catching patterns that reflect regional heritage. Men often wear chapan robes, paired with belts and turbans or skull caps. Women wear kurta dresses over trousers, layered with robes and headscarves. The fabrics are usually silk or cotton, and they say a lot about social status. Even the shoes have character, from soft maxi boots to wooden heels known as kafshi chubin. But culture in Tajikistan isn't just expressed in arts and clothing. It's also found in sport. If there's one game that defines Tajik intensity, it's buzkashi, a horseback battle where players fight over a goat carcass. It used to involve hundreds of riders at once. These days, teams are smaller, but the energy is just as intense. Other popular sports include chavgonbozi, a local version of polo, and gushtingiri, a traditional form of wrestling where the goal is to throw your opponent onto their back. Winners earn the honoured title of polvon, or hero, which to them is a badge of both strength and pride. Tajikistan might not be on every traveller's radar, but its story deserves a spotlight. It's a nation shaped by empires, scarred by conflict, and still standing tall in the heart of Central Asia. And with over 90% of the country covered in mountains, it begs the question: If you had the chance to explore Tajikistan, would you trek the towering Pamirs or dive into its hidden alpine lakes? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed this video, you're going to love this next one.